recent middleweight championship fight between Israel Adesanya and Robert Whittaker sparked up a lot of debate about judging. A lot of people thought Whittaker won the fight, but a lot of people agreed with the judge's decision to give it to Adesanya. This got us thinking, which were the most controversial decisions of 2021? We take a look at the 10 most controversial ones in this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel to never miss an Athlete Central video, and let's dive straight into it. Number 10. TJ Dillishaw vs. Cory Sandhagen. This fight was not a robbery, since it was an extremely close fight, but the decision was definitely controversial. The top bantamweights TJ Dillishaw and Cory Sandhagen faced each other in July for a fight that would potentially determine the #1 contender. The fight was an extremely good back and forth. Sandhagen landed the most impactful shots, yet Dillishaw had more control time, and that is what the judges went with. The majority of MMA media outlets scored the fight for Sandhagen, and 60% of fans also scored it for the Sandman on MMAdecisions.com. The first and third rounds were definitely TJ's, the second was definitely Sandhagen's, and the last two were up for debate. The judges gave it to TJ, and the media and fans gave it to Cory. Number 9. Petr Yan vs. Aljamain Sterling. Staying at bantamweight, we are technically cheating a little bit here since the judges had nothing to do with this one, but the decision of this fight was certainly very controversial and sparked up a very interesting debate. Petr Yan was dominating Aljamain Sterling in their title fight at UFC 259 and started to hurt him in the third round. He landed an illegal knee in the fourth when Aljo was downed, and after a few minutes, Aljo said that he could not continue, winning the belt via disqualification. Should the fighters have a say on whether or not the fight is stopped, or should it be completely up to the doctors and the referee? Let us know in the comments below.
What does it feel like right now?
I thought the fight was very close. I thought I was down 2 rounds. That's not the way I wanted to win. That's not the way I envisioned this.
Number 8. Douglas Lima vs. MVP. We move on to Bellator this time for a high-profile #1 contender fight between Douglas Lima and Michael Venom Page. At the start of round 1, MVP was landing a few good shots, but midway through, Lima landed a takedown halfway through and controlled MVP on the ground. That was the round that split opinion. Round 2 was clearly MVP's, and the third round was clearly Lima's. 6 out of 7 MMA media outlets scored the fight for Lima, and 62% of the fans scored it for the Brazilian, despite the decision going to the Englishman.
I got amazing friends. My wife is here watching today. I'm very emotional right now, but thank you guys for all the support, and let's finish this tournament.
Number 7. Alexander Romanov vs. Juan Espino. Two heavyweight prospects took each other on in April of last year. This was a fight that was one of the better under-the-radar ones that could really determine one of the future stars of the division. The first round was very competitive, but Espino was relentless with his throws and takedowns after Romanov clinched him in the early stages. Round 2 was clearly Romanov's as the Moldovan landed vicious ground and pound and put the pressure on Espino. In the third round, after Espino took Romanov down and controlled for a bit, the fight resumed on the feet, but the Spaniard landed a low knee to Romanov's cup, and the Moldovan said he couldn't continue, leading to a technical decision since 2 rounds had already been completed. Shockingly, the Moldovan took home the split decision win. 6 of 8 pundits saw it as a win for Espino, and 2 saw it as a draw. 78% of the fans also scored it for Espino. Number 6. Angela Hill vs. Amanda Lemos. The absurdity of this strawweight fight between Hill and Lemos is the scorecards. Looking at the fight, you would think rounds 1 and 2 would seem very clear. Lemos dropped Hill in the first with a beautiful front kick followed by some ground and pound. Round 2 was a clear one for Hill, who landed way more shots and was right in Lemos' face throughout the duration of it, making it a clear round for her in the eyes of everyone except Judge Douglas Crosby, who scored the fight 30-27 for Lemos. Lemos must have some dirt on him. Hill had a lot of control time in the third despite Lemos landing some shots early on. Hill landed some nice elbows and landed some nice combinations in the final minutes. 10 out of 11 MMA media members scored the fight for Hill, and 72.1% of the fans also scored it for her. The judges scored it for Lemos.
A lot of respect for her after the front kick to the face and after the strikes after. To have her resilience to still stay in the fight, it was really impressive to me.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It was an incredible fight.
Number 5. Dan Moraes vs. Gochi Yamauchi. This Bellator 256 showdown between Dan Moraes and Gochi Yamauchi caused quite a bit of controversy. Despite early striking success for Moraes, Gochi got his back after the American followed him to the mat, as Gochi is very well versed on the ground. Yamauchi clearly took round 2 with some very impressive grappling, and spending the majority of the round in control and hunting for submissions. Round 3 was a toss-up. Both fighters had their moments, and it really was anyone's to take. Moraes himself was shocked when the scorecards were read. Every single media member scored the fight for Gochi, with a couple of 30-27 cards as well. 86% of fans scored the fight for him as well. Safe to say, this one was a robbery. Number 4, Matthias Nicholau versus Manel Kape. How the judges got this one wrong is baffling. Probably the most straightforward fight to score on this list. Round 1 was clearly Nicholau's, who landed several takedowns and even did some damage on the feet. The second was clearly Kape's, who landed a lot of powerful shots with his razor-sharp hands that hurt Nicholau several times. The third round was back and forth, but Kape was still landing the more impactful strikes and blitzed the Brazilian in the final minute, landing some powerful combinations. Despite this, the judges saw for Nicholau. All 22 media members scored the fight 29-28 for Kape, and 80% of the fans had him winning the fight. Number 3, TJ Brown versus Kai Kamaka III. This one is a very unfortunate robbery, as it led to the loser ultimately being cut from the UFC. In May of last year, featherweights TJ Brown and Kai Kamaka III faced off. Despite a good start from Brown on the feet, Kai managed to close the distance and take the fight to the ground, landing some nice ground and pound. Kai had the better second round, landing some nice kicks and knocking TJ down with a right hand before some more ground and pound. Brown eventually got up and landed a takedown towards the end of the round that did not really lead to anything significant. Kamaka landed a couple of takedowns in the third round, and there were a few scrambles on the ground, yet Kamaka always seemed to end up on top. Somehow, Brown got the victory despite every single MMA media member scoring it for Kai. 6 of them even had it 30-27. 77% of fans also scored it for Kai. Unfortunately for him, he got screwed over yet again in his next fight that was scored as a draw despite the majority of fans and pundits scoring it for him against Chavez, which ultimately led to him being cut from the UFC. Number 2, Miranda Maverick versus Macie Barber. The most controversial decision in the UFC last year was undoubtedly Maverick versus Barber. The first round was clearly Miranda's, as Barber was throwing strikes out of range, while Maverick seemed to be landing everything she was throwing, with some beautiful combinations. The second round was more of the same, despite Barber doing just a bit better than she did in round 1. Maverick was still landing several combinations and looking great on the feet. Barber tried to clinch up against the fence and search for a takedown she could not find for more than a minute. Maverick closed the round with a takedown and some ground and pound in a round that seemed to be clearly hers. Round 3 was a whitewash the other way. Barber got herself together and started landing heavy punches. She landed a spinning elbow in the last minute as well, putting an exclamation mark on the round. For the fans at home, it seemed like Barber clearly took round 3 and would continue to dominate if the fight was 5 rounds. But rounds 1 and 2 were clearly Maverick's. To everyone's surprise, the judge gave it to Barber. Every single media member scored the fight 29-28 for Maverick, and a whopping 92% of fans scored the fight for her as well, closing out the most controversial UFC decision of 2021. Number 1, Rory MacDonald versus Grayson Tibau. There was one decision in the PFL that was seemingly worse though, in the MacDonald versus Tibau fight. Rory used his range extremely well in the first round, landing several good strikes, with 1s and 2s being his primary go-tos. After a couple of unsuccessful takedowns, Rory finally managed to take Tibau's back and threatened with a rear naked choke, but Tibau held on and made it out of the first round. Rory continued in the same vein in round 2, landing a lot of powerful shots that surprisingly didn't even wobble Tibau. He also had some success working the body in the grappling exchanges. Overall, Rory definitely took this one as well due to the amount of strikes landed and the power that he possessed. The third round was very technical. MacDonald continued with his shots to the body, but Tibau was able to land a few left hands. Rory also landed several nice shots, but Tibau had become rash and chasing a finish because he thought he was definitely down on the scorecards. But Rory's defense was on point, and he still landed the better shots overall. It seemed as though Rory was going home with a clean sweep of all 3 rounds. Yet, when the judges announced a split decision win for Tibau, the social media outrage was instantaneous. UFC fighters like Ben Askren, Bilal Muhammad, Gilbert Burns, and Jeremy Stephens lamented the judging. Scoring at Verdict announced that the fan scoring ended up being the biggest point differential where the fighter has lost. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. Did we miss anything out? What do you think was the most controversial decision of 2021? Let us know in the comments below. Leave a like and make sure to subscribe to never miss an Athlete Central video. Peace.